So we've probably done about 900 podcasts or so between the both of them. So I told you, I mean, it's a serious affliction. Every idea doesn't have to become a product. Every product doesn't have to become a company. So this could have been in the old days. This could have been just like a 10% team making bank, right? Maybe earning 4 or 5 times whatever they make.
Nobody gets it right in the first go. And that's true for, I would say, 100% of entrepreneurs.
But SaaS is amazing, right? I mean, you have 60-70% margins on the business. Really, it's applicable to any industry as such. I had this morbid fear that I will turn into Stanley from The Office.
Hi, welcome to the episode of The Startup Operator on Tap. Today we are sitting down with Roshan Cariappa, founder of The Startup Operator and Bharatvaarta. He runs these two podcasts in addition to doing a bunch of interesting stuff in the marketing domain. He has spent 16 plus years with the startup world in Bangalore. Today we'll get to uncover his story and understand what goes behind building and growing startups. Hi Roshan,
Hey,
welcome
hi, Soumya.
to the podcast. Glad to have you here. Thanks for traveling all the way to HSR today. Why don't you maybe start with a quick hi to the audience and then we deep dive into your journey.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Real pleasure being here. Hey, folks. Hope you find this insightful, if not entertaining, at least.
Sure. Roshan, let's start with your journey. Let's understand how so many transitions happened and finally you landed up in the right place in Bangalore where you're working with startups, helping them with GTM and marketing strategy overall.
Sure.
Tell us about your journey and how all of this happened.
I'm going to betray my age, okay? I try to wear the shirt to sort of like offset that. But yeah, it's been 16 long years,
Yeah.
you know, and I am an instrumentation engineer by education. Spent very little time at the refinery, got really sick and tired of it. Thankfully, didn't burn myself or something of that sort. Came back with all my limbs intact, but my spirit really broken. And joined really the first place that would have me, you know.
Okay.
It was 2008, peak of the financial crisis. Lehman Brothers had just crashed and so on, right? I mean, unpleasant times, needless to say. And started off in what was a small company. I mean, now you could call it a startup, 15 or 20 people trying to do meaningful work and so on. I thought, you know, I'll bide my time till the next CAT exam or whatever, and then, you know, put off meaningful decision making for a couple of years after. But I ended up staying there for 4 years, made a lot of very good friends and allies, learned a bunch of stuff, did the early versions of what you would call growth, right? Which
Right.
had a mix of sales, product, marketing. Then quite naively started up myself, right? Again, very accidentally, I didn't plan much of it, which is kind of a recurring thing in my life, I should say, right? And just built this marketing services firm, which then pivoted to a tech services firm, which then pivoted to building apps for families and kids. Okay, go figure, right? So did that for about 4 to 5 years, and then like everyone else, perhaps living up to that cliche of swearing off consumer internet for SaaS. I mean, I joined a SaaS firm. This was a company called Waymo. I joined them when we were just about $1 million in revenue. Did great work again, thanks to my founders and the other people that I was with. Many different pivots and GTM journeys along the way. I mean, I quit Waymo last year, and we were at about the 20 million mark around then. So it was a fascinating journey. And then after that, I joined this fintech startup called Money. So I'm back to early stage again. So it's equal parts anxiety and excitement, and but never a dull day, I should say. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about your entrepreneurship stint in between? I know it was a chance occurrence, but how did you land upon the idea? How did you build it? How did you then decide to move out?
Look, I wish I was a little more deliberate. I mean, I was just like looking for business, you know. I mean, I was just looking for some way to kind of put food on the table, so to speak. And what happened was, after my first gig, I had done a bit of sales, bit of product, bit of marketing, and so on, right? I mean, like I said, I mean, this is 2011 or 12. People didn't quite know what to make of that profile, right? I mean, today you call it growth and whatnot. I mean, it was still like people didn't know what to do about it. I didn't want to like focus on sales or product or marketing at that time. And so I just started helping small businesses with small marketing stuff, right? So writing a piece of copy or running some campaigns and so on and so forth. And pretty soon I had 3 or 4 collaborators, if you will. And this just evolved into a company of its own, right? Simply because we needed a more formal way of collecting payments, right? I mean, we
Correct.
couldn't just like, you know, do back alley deals and stuff. So that's how the company happened. And then marketing services was great at that time because it was still the time of early days of digital, right? And people didn't know what to do of it, what to make of it. So we had like 4 or 5 of these retainers. I was feeling like a king, but just that, I mean, it was burning me out. I mean, I couldn't kind of service them as well.
So you
So
were the
we
single person
Yeah, pretty
running
much.
the
I mean, I
show.
had like another minion with me, but it was hard work,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't want to kill myself. So we said, look, I mean, let's take a step back and maybe like start building digital services instead, right? I
Makes
mean,
sense.
websites, mobile apps, and so on and so forth. We did that for a while. And then 2013, 2014, this was like the consumer internet wave, and you had an app for everything. And we said, we're smart people as well. We can also build an app for something. And this co-founder of ours, former client, had just had a kid about 3 years back, and he was telling me about parenting and all of the troubles and tribulations, along with the joys, of course, that came with it. And we were trying to figure like a tech intervention for that. Okay, so that's how we ended up building this app called Tribe, which is like a Slack for families, you could say, right? You could collaborate on tasks. I mean, you could curate memories and so on and so forth. And then, I mean, we didn't want to be like a one app sort of or one product company. So we said, look, let's build like a storybook that's complemented by a VR AR experience, So there was this entire theme of Dingo the dog. I mean, this dog who goes about solving all these mysteries that kids bring him and all that. And you had an app. I mean, if you point in a certain direction, like a crater shows up or like a dinosaur just pops out and stuff like that. It was cool stuff, but obviously, I mean, not very productive. Didn't make a lot. Didn't make a lot of money doing that. Like severely underestimated what it takes to build a consumer internet company at any rate, right? So I did that for a while, and then of course, I mean, I had to like do some serious stuff in life, right? I mean, get married and stuff like that. So I had to get a real job after that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how you got into Waymo.
That's how I got into Waymo. And to sum it up, right? I mean, I wasn't deliberate. I wasn't focused on the money, right? I probably did some hazard other mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
Right. So not the best example of like entrepreneurship or whatever.
No, I think I would disagree with that, maybe, because one thing which I very deeply believe in is nobody gets it right in the first go. And that's true for, I would say, 100% of entrepreneurs. If there are any, I think they'll be like very rare. But most people learn by making mistakes, and more mistakes that they make on their own. So almost every successful entrepreneur would have already done something in the past which probably wouldn't have worked out for one reason or the other, and they would have learned from it, took the courage again, took the plunge again, and then started up, and probably use those learnings to make it right the next time. So if you have made 1,000 mistakes, I think there's even more chance for you to be successful at whatever you do next, for sure.
Well, let's hope. But you are right. I mean, I've hosted about 250 founders or so on the podcast, and I can tell you a good number of them, maybe 70 to 80% of them are working on the second idea or product.
Correct.
So
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. And I think that's why it makes most sense to get done with your first startup as soon as possible, so that you have enough time to do some serious stuff after that.
Do your stupid mistakes in your 20s.
Correct.
Applies to a lot more things.
Yes. Yes. On that note, I want to touch upon different industries that you've worked with so far. D2C is definitely one that you've closely seen. SaaS is another that you've closely seen. Tell us, what other industries have you seen very closely? Which one appealed the most to you, and why?
See, I'm a SaaS guy. Okay, I mean, if you look at my X profile, I mean, it'll say optimistic about Bharat startups and SaaS. I love SaaS because I think it's a moment of reckoning for us. Because for about 30 or 40 years, we've built systems and applications on the back end for all of these MNCs and whatnot. SaaS is us actually being the front end of things, right? Today, Freshworks is as good, if not better, than a Salesforce. ChargeBee is as good, if not better, than a Zuora, and so on and so forth, right? So it's a serious moment of reckoning for us. And, okay, I mean, the mood is not exactly buoyant in SaaS over the last 1 or 2 years, but I feel it's like a temporary blip before people kind of reinvent another way of operating in the sector. But SaaS is amazing, right? I mean, you have 60-70% margins on the business. And really, it's applicable to any industry as such, right? I mean, you start off with horizontal SaaS like CRM or service software and so on, right? And then you transition to vertical software, and then now you have AI agents and so on for specific tasks and projects and workflows and whatnot.
Correct.
So I feel like it's infinitely exciting. I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd with SaaS, but yeah, I just absolutely love SaaS. Yeah.
So SaaS is clearly your
Yeah.
most favorite industry
Yeah.
that you've seen.
If I wasn't clear.
So, why do you think currently SaaS is not the buzzword, and what do you think will change for it to get back to normal?
Look, I mean, I think people get hung up about these things every few years. Okay. What you have to remember is SaaS is a mode of delivery, software as a service, multi-tenant. It's a concept, right? It's a technology. But ultimately, what you're doing is like B2B software in the most productive and efficient way possible,
Yeah.
right? And that at its kernel is going to continue to exist, right? As long as businesses exist, right? So over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of skepticism that AI will kill SaaS and whatnot. I mean, uh, sure, fine, it'll disrupt SaaS to a certain extent, right? I mean, I can see a lot of the frivolous applications that kind of charged like $15 a month or whatever being disrupted away.
Yeah.
You had crazy things in 2021, right? All kinds of excesses. Like I remember evaluating this app that would set up like a coffee hour, they called it,
Okay.
with a random colleague of yours,
Okay.
right? And they were charging like $12 a person
Wow.
or something, right? I mean, it's like, come on. I mean, it's like, yeah.
You don't need SaaS for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a company,
Yeah.
That's not a company. That's like a
fun project.
That's a fun project, right? That's something that somebody did on a weekend and earned a few dollars.
Yeah.
But then you see this company has raised a Series A of like 10 million, and then they're like serious people commenting about like an app which is basically like a coffee date setup in more secular circumstances, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like that kind of shit, I mean, I went to SaaSter in 21 or 22, and they were like, so there were probably about 50 to 60 booths or whatnot. A third of them were expense management software. Okay. Which was probably
Costing
like,
a bomb.
yeah, exactly. Costing more than whatever expenses they saved.
Yeah.
A third of them were sales cadence software, and a third of them were SOC 2 compliance. Okay. You don't need that many, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that every idea doesn't have to become a product. Every product doesn't have to become a company, So this could have been in the old days, right? If you look at the old days, this could have been just like a 10% team making bank, right? Maybe earning 4 or 5 times whatever they make, whatever they would make, being employed somewhere, and just killing it. But now you have a board for this. I mean, I don't know if you're allowed to swear, but yeah. It's those kind of excesses, right? I mean, so the next leap forward will correct those excesses. I told you, SaaS is inherently like a hugely profitable business. But then, I mean, you have this like crazy spending on customer acquisition and so on and so forth. So much so that people are making like 30, 40, 50% losses, right? I mean, how does it justify any of that?
Correct.
So I feel it's a temporary blip. I feel like AI is going to make SaaS better, and this is a meaningful correction.
Got it.
I have very strong feelings about this. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I think we want to hear your true feelings and opinions, so there's nothing wrong with that. But I found your point on how AI agents are thought of as replacements for SaaS very interesting. I also believe that it will not definitely replace. Nothing can truly replace anything unless it's something which is like fundamentally wrong with the technology and probably was very difficult to use with in the first place. With SaaS, the use case is definitely very strong with whatever it may be solving, probably a bookkeeping, HR management, or whatever software it is. But as long as it's catering to a very core need, which is not going to go away, SaaS is going to stay. Probably the way people use SaaS will improve. Maybe it'll not require so much training in the first go. Maybe it'll become like a very user friendly way of using the tool, and that's where AI agents and those kind of technologies will really help. But would want to know your views on how that is going
See,
to.
anyone who's built or sold business to business software knows that it's not going anywhere. Because that's not how people sort of buy software. This argument of they will build it themselves is not new.
Yeah.
Okay. Anytime there's a new leap forward, I mean, people keep talking about it. I'm yet to see, hear of anyone except for like maybe like a random company that replaced its Salesforce with some in-house system or something of that sort, right? This whole category of IT services companies shouldn't exist, right? And the irony is that the one company that's doing the most amount of revenue on Gen AI is Accenture.
Yeah.
They're clocking like 4 billion.
Yeah.
Which is absurd, right? So I don't think people are going to build all of this stuff, with a no code, low
Correct.
code, this, that, whatever, right? I mean, they still need software people to kind of build it for them. Sure. I mean, you may not require as many people or as many hours, or it may not cost as much, but you still damn well need people. Okay.
Correct.
And so that I think is like a misnomer in that sense. And this level of innovation on the agent side or whatever, right? It's going to come from existing SaaS folks. It's not going to come from the IT services folks. It's not going to come from some CIO sitting in a large bank, right? It's not going to come from your garage startup also, right? It's not. It's simply not. A lot of B2B software is also like extremely psychological. People don't buy Salesforce because it's the best damn software in the world. They buy Salesforce because they won't get fired buying Salesforce.
Correct. Got it. No, makes sense, and I truly buy the point that the decision to use is not actually made by the user itself. It's actually made at some other level, and then you're having to use it. But how do you think the future is going to look like? Will the way people interact with these tools change? Will the way they are built change? Will the way they are marketed change? What will change?
I think for a long time we got used to this per user per month kind of a thing, pricing. I think that pricing is gone.
Okay.
Right? I think you will see a new type of pricing either on transaction or actual use, number of agents required, something of that sort, right? I mean, whatever that is. And there will be a period of time, just like with the PUPM, where it is extremely efficient, extremely, cost, economical and whatnot, and then we'll figure a way to make it more expensive, right? That's capitalism for you, right? I mean, we figure what you need, and then like we'll layer on top of that 1 or 2 orders of complexity and bake in the additional cost. Right?
Yeah.
That's how it works. Well, on the business side, that's pretty much what will change, right? I mean, this pricing will change, and downstream from pricing, I think a lot of the business models will change as well. So you won't have like, this luxury marketing teams, right? Like I call it. I mean, 21, 22, you had like 50% marketing teams for a company that's like, barely 10 million or 12 million, right? You won't have that. Teams are going to be a lot leaner, right? And they're going to have to punch way above their weight.
Right.
Right. So downstream from that, it'll impact a bunch of things. So again, headcount is not going to be this astronomical 5,000 people, 10,000 people companies, right? I mean, you're not going to see that. You're going to see a lot more streamlined, lighter companies, so to speak, right?
Interesting.
So that's what I see as those major changes. Yeah.
I think it's very simple to imagine that all of this will happen. It's very logical, but the ripple effects of these changes are going to be immense,
Huge. Yeah.
very huge.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the very obvious ones are the way companies will probably improve their top line or bottom line, or the way they will imagine scale, or the way they will start catering to maybe global markets very, very efficiently. And that will obviously have a different way in which VCs will start evaluating these businesses, or the way they'll start valuing these businesses. And that sort of growth journey starts for these companies. But what do you think are going to be the ripple effects of these changes?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, when we look into the future, right? And as finance people, you know this as well. I mean, you tend to kind of extrapolate from the present. Right? You look at everything that's happened before and then like you project forward.
Yes.
Right? Now, no one will call you stupid for that. Right? But you're also not extremely smart. You know what I mean? Because the future is always like, I'm not talking about a year down the line, even though it's harder to predict now than ever before. But it's never an extrapolation from the present. It's not like that neat Excel spreadsheet kind of thing, right? I mean, it's always an exponential thing, right? Look at everything that's happened over the last 5 years, right? From COVID to Russia, Ukraine to Trump to whatever, right? There's been like crazy systemic shocks and whatnot, right? I mean, you can't really look into the future that way. But
so what are the ripple effects of
ripple effects? Ripple effects are that look, again, I don't want to like single out VCs here, but VCs had pretty much wrecked a lot of businesses. Okay, 21, 22 time. I mean, they had. Look, I mean, I saw a company that was maybe 7-8 million ARR, if that, right, being valued at about 900 or 950 million.
The 21 was a different.
No, but then a whole bunch of these guys, right, now have to fight the laws of physics to catch up with those valuation, right? You have what you call down rounds right now,
Correct.
which nobody wants to do but is forced to right now. And you have a whole bunch of these companies that are at sea, right? And founders who've made, let's say, a decent chunk of change with secondaries and so on, right? And not exactly living the founder life, per se. Right? See, I'm old school. 16 years back, even like 12 years back, founders were like really scrappy folks.
Correct.
Right? They were not the HSR cool dudes that you see right now. Okay, I'm happy. I'm happy that, the fact that founders have moved from, garages to much more, less cozier places is good. It's a good change. Right. But I feel like you need a little bit of like moderation of that. Right. So, looking into the future, I think a bunch of these businesses will cease to exist. And the tech and the business disruption going forward will cause a new bunch of these folks to come up,
Got it.
But again, I mean, I feel it'll be like one of the existing ones. It'll not be your garage startup that builds an, agentic solution to kind of kill, let's say, Freshworks or Chargebee or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen.
Got it. So essentially, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is the way all these existing SaaS businesses, which have already scaled to whatever level, they'll find ways to improve efficiencies,
absolutely.
which will probably show in their business models, in their books, and eventually will be able to actually deliver the kind of realistic returns which are possible, and the valuations will also make more sense in that case. And I think a very genuine ask of any investor from any business model would be to be rational from relatively early stage.
See, the thing is that the oldest joke in finance is this time it will be different. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to expect any different, I mean, it's hard to sit out of a bull run, For all of those investors doling out cash, I mean, there were people accepting it also.
Yeah.
Right? Founders play this shucks routine, okay? I mean, like, we didn't know anything. And then, I mean, you knew.
Yeah,
right?
you were building it, so.
So, yeah, I mean, this is like, it happens. Every 8 to 10 years, you have these excesses and, it gets trimmed off during the next cycle and the cycle after that and so on. We think we'll be smarter, but we won't.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry, I'm sounding a little cynical. But,
no, but I think I agree with it. I think we're seeing business cycles running since forever, since we weren't there, and it'll probably continue even after we're not here.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's just basic human nature, that whenever they're at the lows, they put everything to reach back to the peak, only to, chill again and then probably see another trough. So
aptly summarized.
Yeah, but I think given what we've seen in the recent past, probably at least for the next few years, things will be a little rosy until we don't know what other mistakes people will be making, and then see where things go from there. Cool. I think another interesting point I would want to touch upon is the fact that you mentioned that you also keep talking to a lot of founders, have exposure via talking to these founders to different industries. And I think you run a couple of your own podcasts. So do you want to talk about what was the motivation behind starting that, and what are you gaining out of that?
Gaining pretty much nothing, actually. I mean, it's an expensive...
Not financially.
It's an expensive hobby at this point of time, right? I mean, I often wonder, why I do it, but it's a serious affliction at this point. I can't justify it any other way. But anyway, I mean, rewind to like Feb of 2020. I didn't start with any grand design or whatever. And both these podcasts, the Startup Operator and Bharatvaarta, started for slightly different reasons. Uh, Bharatvaarta started as like a medium for long form, serious long form discussions. 2020 again. I mean, people, most of their political arguments or policy things would happen on WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is like a shitty medium. I mean, it's like it always devolves into hopeless one-upmanship. Okay, and then someone gets pissed and they leave the group and whatnot. So that kind of happened with me. And
Were you the one leaving?
no, I mean, this really sweet lad, okay? I mean, the guy I knew for a long time abused me, man. I mean, it's pretty serious.
Oh.
And I had this, like, realization that, man, you need to have a better forum for this kind of discussion. So Bharatvaarta started as that, like serious, long form discussion on politics, policy, and culture focused on India.
Okay.
It was also the time a bunch of my friends who had moved to the US, Canada, UK, and so on were kind of like reading all kinds of trash about India and saying, "Oh man, so I'm so happy we left," and like what's happened to India and so on. And because they were reading all this like New York Times and Washington Post and God forbid the Atlantic and whatnot, right? I mean, I wanted to actually tell them that, look, I mean, things are not so bad. In fact, I mean, it's quite the
better.
contrary and so on. So that was Bharatvaarta. The Startup Operator, well, I mean, it's so when I transitioned to Waymo, right? I mean, I didn't want, I had this morbid fear, okay? Like this really morbid fear that I will turn into Stanley from The Office, okay? That, I mean, the clock will strike 5 and I'll leave, right? I will well and truly check out. And just that image, right? I mean, never kind of left me. And so I would have these conversations with other operators, founders, and so on, almost daily or if not weekly.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I would go meet them for chai. I would really annoy them with all these specific questions on, hey, how do you, do 0 to 1 on sales, or how do you expand to Southeast Asia, or like, how do you hire the smartest engineers, or what have you, okay?
Yeah.
All of these things. And so it was just like natural curiosity, also fighting my imposter syndrome and so on. And COVID happened. Obviously, I mean, I couldn't have these conversations in real life, IRL as the kids say. So, I mean, I started recording them on Zoom and whatnot. And at some point, I just started publishing them.
Okay.
So that's like very separate reasons why both these podcasts started. We're probably the most prolific podcasters in India. I mean, seriously. So we've probably done about 900 podcasts or so between the both of them.
Wow.
Right. So I told you, I mean, it's a serious affliction. Yeah.
No, I think there is something that you're getting out of it. Probably not monetarily, but all the knowledge and
spiritually,
and just getting to know a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I was being a little facetious there, right? So it's obviously, I mean, I've gained a lot. I mean, I've obviously met the most wonderful people, right? Sometimes it's a long, weary day and you don't even have coffee, and then like you meet these guys who are just the most wonderful people.
Correct.
I mean, people who are just like trying to conquer all odds and so on. I mean, it's hard not to be inspired by those kind of people, right? And I'm eternally optimistic because of that, because I have these kind of conversations, right? So that's one thing. And second, I mean, obviously there's a certain level of knowledge and wisdom you gain from having serious conversations and not like doom scrolling forever.
Absolutely.
Right? So that, right? I mean,
if you were to single out a few interesting insights or learnings that you've had with these interactions, and I don't want to bucket them into marketing, hiring, or whatever, but just like top 3 that come to the mind.
I should have been prepared for this. The top 3 question, right? But look, the one big difference that I notice among the people who are like go-getters, who are like really trying to do something, is agency.
Okay.
They know the odds. They know it sucks. They know that life is unfair, that the world is going to hell. All of those things, okay? But they have supreme agency, okay? They're not sitting. They're moving. They're literally moving, okay? I mean, that is just an enviable quality, no matter who you are, what you want to do, etc. I think agency is like top stuff, right? Because the folks that I've spoken to may not be the most intelligent folks, right? The startup founder who is killing it may not be the most intelligent person, but man, that guy will go to hell and back for what he believes in.
Correct.
It's tremendous thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous thing. I think that's the number one thing I would say, right? And you notice it in like truly the remarkable folks, right? I mean, you look at Mr. Sridhar Vembu, for example, who I've talked to like more than a couple of times, right? I mean, the man has pretty much achieved everything he wants to, right? But he keeps like inventing this new frontier,
Absolutely.
right? Now he's like chief scientist at Zoho. He's trying to look at, AI, robotics, and so on, right? I mean, it's crazy, man. So I think the real blessing in India is that we have a good number of these folks who still believe in this kind of stuff, right? Who
Right.
still believe that change is possible.
And they're
I
doing
think,
something about it.
yeah, they're doing something about it. I think agency is the number one thing.
Got it.
So quite often, I mean, I was the type earlier as well who would like debate the pros and cons like ad nauseum and intellectualize every damn thing. But it doesn't help, man. It really, really doesn't help.
At some point, you have to
move
take
forward.
action.
Yeah, you have to move forward, right?
Absolutely.
So agency, I would say. Second is like maybe humility because of like the kind of stuff that you do, right? Generally people are like super gracious, right? Most people, I would say 99 point like whatever percent, right? I mean, last week I was with Amish Tripathi. The guy is maybe top 3, top 4 best-selling authors of all time in India, right? Sells like a crazy, 10 lakh books or whatever that is. Had the highest rated or perhaps the top 5 rated TV series last year,
Yeah.
right? Is producing TV series, films, etc. like more than you can ever catch up, But man, what a gracious guy. What an amazingly gracious person, I mean, the moment you're in front of him and I'm nervous as a wreck, I mean, he just totally disarms you, with his demeanor and everything. You feel like you're talking to an elder brother, like a cooler, wiser elder brother types, right? Amazing. Like humility, and then you contrast that with some of the, the folks that you see who've kind of hit that one inflection where they've managed to do something successful, right? And now they think like
they're the
they're the king of the block or whatever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just such a huge contrast, I mean, so yeah, humility is another thing, and then like being perennially optimistic, I suppose, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
No, I think I personally take a lot from the agency point that you mentioned, and I think that's what sets apart founders from others and good founders from the rest. So
Yeah.
I 100% believe in that, and I think it's tough for any founder, and you have to just keep moving. There's no other choice. I mean, it's not easy for anybody at any stage.
Yeah.
Even the ones who you seem like they've made it, they're still going through something that you probably don't know.
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know why people become founders actually.
I'll probably tell you off camera later.
It's just, I mean, it's some kind of kink, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what,
Yeah,
Seriously.
something has to be off.
it's a hellish journey, man. I mean, literally, like, I mean, if you achieve any degree of success, it's just more pressure than you can take every day. There is no off switch,
Yeah.
right? All kinds of people are doing all kinds of random things, and you're
Yeah.
responsible for everything all at once.
But I think what keeps people going is that they feel that that's the best thing to do
Yeah,
of
you're
all
alive.
the other things.
You're
Yeah,
alive.
You're alive and kicking,
Yeah.
and that's the best way to probably spend your
Yeah,
time.
it's
So.
look. I mean, I don't mean to get like super philosophical or whatever, but it's probably like a short circuit to self realization.
Correct.
You understand yourself like truly, well and truly, once you go
Yeah.
through something like that.
Yes, absolutely. No, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we'll, even though I don't want to, but I will probably bring this to a wrap.
Sure.
Any last words for our audience before we wrap up?
No, this was fun. I mean, the time to build is now, especially in India.
Yes.
Right, we have a lot of tailwinds.
Yeah.
That's just gonna help us leapfrog into the future.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that your audience builds.
Great. Hope you all enjoyed today's session, and we'll catch you in the next one. Until then, take care. Bye bye.